My name is Rachel Monroe. I am 33 years old, a clinical records auditor in Nashville, Tennessee, and at 7:40 p.m. on the night of my father's retirement dinner, my mother stood at a microphone in the church fellowship hall and announced to 116 people that I had agreed to donate a kidney to my brother. I was seated near the kitchen doors, beside the coffee urns and the stack of extra napkins, while Jason sat at the head table under a blue and white banner that said, "Thank you, Alan Monroe, 38 years of service." My father wore a retirement sash, my mother wore pearls, and my brother wore the fragile smile everyone used to forgive him before he even asked. Jason was the golden child, the brave son, the father of three, the man whose bad decisions became family emergencies. I was the capable daughter, the unmarried one, the childless one, the one they called when forms needed fixing, bills needed reading, portals needed resetting, or shame needed carrying. My mother, Patricia, lifted a blue hospital consent folder over her head like it was a hymn book and said, "Rachel has finally agreed to give Jason the gift of life." People clapped before I could stand. My sister-in-law, Melissa, pressed a hand to her mouth like she was trying not to cry. My father looked at me from the stage and mouthed, "Not here." Then my mother smiled at the room and said, "A childless daughter can spare one piece of herself for the brother who gave this family grandchildren." That was the sentence that made the room tilt, not because it surprised me, because it told me they had stopped asking for my help and started speaking as if my body had already been approved by committee. My phone buzzed under the table. A hospital portal alert lit the screen. "Donor evaluation advanced. Consent packet received. Please confirm final review appointment." I had never signed a consent packet. I had never agreed to testing. I had never offered my kidney. I looked at the blue folder in my mother's hand, then at Jason's 12-year-old daughter, Lily, who was staring at me with wet eyes like I was already saving her father. I did not cry. I did not shout. I placed my napkin beside my plate, unlocked my phone, and smiled just enough for my mother to misunderstand it. Before I tell you what happened when the hospital called mid-dinner and asked why my signature was on a form I had never touched, tell me this. What time is it where you are right now, and where are you watching from? I want to know how far this story travels before my family realizes a body is not family property. My brother Jason had been sick for almost a year by then, but he had been protected for 36. That was the part my mother left out when she built him into a church tragedy. Jason had kidney disease, yes. He had dialysis consults, medications, exhaustion, and 3 children who were scared in a way no child should have to be scared. I never hated him for being ill. Illness was not the betrayal. The betrayal was how quickly my family turned his illness into my assignment. When Jason missed appointments, my mother said he was overwhelmed. When I rescheduled them, she said I was finally being useful. When Jason ignored diet instructions, Melissa said stress made people forget. When I reminded him, I was cold. When he lost his insurance card twice in 1 month, I spent 43 minutes on hold getting a replacement, and my father thanked Jason for staying positive. Positivity was his job, repair was mine. That pattern was older than his diagnosis. When Jason wrecked my father's Buick at 17, Dad said boys learned through mistakes. When I paid the towing fee from my grocery store paycheck because the car was blocking a church driveway, Dad told me not to act superior. When Jason failed 2 community college classes, Mom said he needed encouragement. When I got a scholarship to Vanderbilt and chose health information management, she asked why I wanted a career built around other people's paperwork. When Jason's first rent check bounced, the family prayed over him. When I covered his electric bill, no one prayed over me. They only asked if I could do it before Friday. My mother called that family. I called it a system with my name at the bottom. At 19, I missed a biology lab because Jason had a court date for an unpaid speeding ticket, and my mother said he needed someone calm beside him. At 22, I spent Christmas Eve in an urgent care lobby with my father because Jason had borrowed his car and disappeared with the insurance card in the glove box. My mother posted a photo of Jason holding his youngest baby the next morning and wrote that nothing mattered more than family showing up. I was cropped out of the picture even though my coat was hanging over the chair beside him. At 25, Melissa called me from a pharmacy parking lot because Jason's prescription required prior authorization, and when I solved it, she told the family group chat that prayer had opened the door. Prayer got credit. I got another password. At 29, my mother asked me to organize a meal train after Jason's first hospitalization, then corrected my spreadsheet colors because they did not feel hopeful enough. At 31, my father told a deacon I was not maternal but very efficient, while I was standing behind him holding his discharge papers. Efficiency was the word they used when care came from me. Love was the word they saved for Jason. The first time I understood consent as more than a word, I was 21, standing in a hospital records room with my mentor, Dr. Elaine Foster. She was not soft, but she was kind in a way that never needed witnesses. She taught compliance like it was a moral language. She once held up an incomplete authorization form and said, "Consent is not kindness unless it is freely given." That sentence stayed with me because my family loved to call pressure love. They loved to call obligation gratitude. They loved to call my boundaries selfishness. In their mouths, family meant access. Prayer meant pressure. Sacrifice meant Rachel. I built my career auditing patient consent, portal access, signatures, emergency contacts, donor files, release forms, and the quiet little boxes people check when they think no one will ever look. My job was not dramatic. I reviewed timestamps. I matched signatures. I traced login records. I flagged missing witness pages. I asked why a form signed at 9:12 had a scan uploaded at 8:58. People joked that I had a gift for finding problems. I did not think of it that way. I knew what happened when the wrong person controlled the paperwork. Paperwork can become a locked door if nobody checks who held the key. For years, my family used that skill while mocking it. My mother called me too clinical while handing me her patient portal password. My father said I made everything complicated while asking me to explain his Medicare supplement. Melissa said I lacked warmth while texting me pictures of prescription bottles and asking which one Jason had to stop before labs. I paid Jason's insurance premiums twice when his coverage almost lapsed. I drove him to a dialysis education appointment on a Tuesday morning after he forgot to tell Melissa. I updated my father's medication list before a cardiology visit. I kept an emergency folder in my condo with copies of driver's licenses, insurance cards, allergies, medication lists, and contact numbers because after years of being blamed for not helping fast enough, I had learned to keep everyone's chaos organized. That folder was supposed to protect them in emergencies. I did not know my mother would treat it like a supply closet. When Jason's kidney numbers got worse, the requests became softer and more dangerous. My mother started asking my blood type at Sunday lunch. Melissa asked whether people without children recovered faster from surgery. My father said, "You are healthy, thank God," in a tone that made my health sound like a family account with his name on it. Jason never asked directly. That was his gift. He let other people do the ugly work, then looked wounded when I noticed. Twice, my mother left transplant brochures on my kitchen counter after visiting. Once, Lily asked me if people could give away a kidney and still go to work. I asked where she heard that. She looked toward Melissa and said, "Grandma says Aunt Rachel knows medical stuff." That was when I started locking my file cabinet. I should have locked more. The retirement dinner was not really for my father. It was a stage. The fellowship hall had folding tables dressed in white cloth, a balloon arch near the podium, a slideshow of my father shaking hands with pastors, and a dessert table filled with lemon bars made by women who believed casseroles could fix almost anything. I arrived late enough to avoid setup, but early enough not to be accused of disrespect. My assigned seat was not with family. It was at table 12, near the kitchen doors, where servers came through carrying trays and the ice machine hummed every few minutes. My mother said the head table was full. Jason's children were seated there. Melissa was there. 2 deacons were there. Lauren Bell, the church social chair, was there. I was the answer to our prayers, but apparently answers could sit by the coffee. My father's speech came first. He thanked the church, thanked my mother, thanked Jason for teaching him what strength looked like, thanked Melissa for holding the family together, thanked the grandchildren for giving him purpose. He did not say my name until he needed to mention our Rachel, who always helps in her own way. In her own way meant privately, without applause, without being welcomed. I looked down at my untouched chicken and told myself I could survive one dinner. Then my mother took the microphone with the blue folder in her hand. She spoke about trials, faith, and the miracle of family sacrifice. Before she said my name, Melissa leaned toward Lily and whispered something that made the child look at me. That was my first warning. The second was the folder. Hospital donor packets have a look. Blue tab, white label, internal barcode, consent divider. I had seen hundreds. My mother should never have had one for me. She announced it anyway. The room clapped. A pastor stood and put his hand over his heart. Jason lowered his head like a man receiving grace. Lily started crying. My mother beamed. Public pressure makes a cage faster than steel. Then my phone buzzed. I read the portal alert twice. Consent packet received. My stomach went cold. Before my mother could continue, another call came in from an unfamiliar hospital number. I answered and put it on speaker because private conversations had kept my family safe for too long. "This is Rachel Monroe," I said. The donor coordinator sounded surprised by the noise behind me. "Ms. Monroe, this is Denise Hall from the transplant donor office. I am calling to confirm your independent donor review for Monday." My mother's smile froze. I said, "Denise, I am at a public family dinner where my mother just announced I agreed to donate a kidney. I have not agreed. I have not signed. I have not completed an independent donor interview." The room stopped clapping in layers. First the table near me, then the center tables, then the stage. Denise's voice changed. "You did not submit the consent packet uploaded this afternoon?" I looked at my mother. "No." Denise paused, and I heard typing. "There is a signature page, a scanned driver's license, and a donor interest confirmation attached." My father stood halfway. "Rachel, maybe not here." I said, "It became here when Mom made it here." The pastor lowered his hand. Melissa whispered, "Oh my God." My mother lifted the folder against her chest and said, "Rachel is overwhelmed. She offered privately." I kept the phone on speaker. "Denise, please document that I am disputing the packet and requesting an immediate hold on all donor processing." Denise said she would freeze the file pending ethics review. A woman at the next table set down her fork so slowly it tapped the plate. That sound was the first crack in my mother's performance. My mother tried to smile through it. "This is just a misunderstanding," she told the room. "Rachel processes fear through control." That was one of her prettier knives. I stood and walked to the stage, not fast, not shaking. I held out my hand. "Give me the folder." She said, "Do not embarrass your father." I said, "You forged my name." The fellowship hall went so quiet I could hear the ice machine drop cubes in the kitchen. My father said, "No one forged anything." I looked at him. "Have you seen the page?" He looked at the floor. The answer was no. The answer was also that he had not needed to. I did not get the folder that night. My mother pulled it back and Melissa hurried the children toward the hallway, except Lily, who stood by her chair staring at me. Jason did not speak. That hurt more than I wanted it to. He knew what our mother was capable of when she thought need made her righteous. He knew I had not volunteered. But silence had always been cheaper for him when I was the one paying. Guests began murmuring. Some looked at me like I had broken a sacred moment. Others looked at my mother like they were seeing the microphone in her hand for the first time. I picked up my purse, turned to Denise still on the phone, and said, "Please send all next steps to my direct email only." Then I left the fellowship hall before my family could turn my face into evidence against me. I had spent my whole life learning not to give them a scene they could edit. My phone exploded before I reached my car. My mother called 4 times. My father texted, "Your mother is devastated." Jason texted, "You could have handled that differently." Melissa sent the first honest message by mistake. "You were supposed to wait until after the blessing." Then, a second later, she deleted it. Deletion is not disappearance if the person receiving it audits records for a living. I screenshotted it from the notification preview, sat in my car under the church parking lot lights, and breathed until my hands stopped tingling. Public shame creates public witnesses. Forgery creates records. At home, I opened my emergency folder and saw the gap immediately. My driver's license copy was missing. Not the original, the scan I kept behind the insurance cards. My mother had been in my condo 3 weeks earlier when she came by with soup she said she made for Jason but accidentally brought to me. She had asked to use the bathroom. My emergency folder was in the hall cabinet because I had been updating my father's Medicare papers that week. I remembered her standing in the hallway too long, asking whether I still kept copies of everyone's medical documents. At the time, I thought she was judging me. Now I knew she was inventorying access. I changed every portal password before midnight. Hospital, pharmacy, insurance, family shared cloud, my father's medication app, Jason's appointment portal, my mother's patient account, everything. Then I sent one written notice to each medical office where I had ever been listed as a helper. Remove all family proxy access to my records. Require direct verbal confirmation for any consent. Flag donor-related documents as disputed. Do not accept scanned authorizations without live verification. I did not accuse. I documented. Anger burns fast. Process lasts longer. By morning, the panic had changed shape. My mother sent a 12-paragraph email about faith, sacrifice, and how fear made me cruel. She wrote that Jason's children needed hope and that I had humiliated a sick man in front of the church. My father wrote, "Your brother's life is at stake. Please do not punish everyone because your mother got excited." Excited. That was his word for public medical coercion. Melissa sent pictures of the kids eating cereal at the kitchen table. "Lily misses you." Jason finally called and left a voicemail. His voice sounded tired, but not sorry. "Rach, nobody was trying to force you. Mom just wanted people to pray." I saved the file. In my family, prayer was often what they called pressure when witnesses were present. At 10:18 that morning, Denise Hall emailed me a copy of the disputed packet through the secure portal. The signature page made me sit very still. It was close. Too close for a stranger. My first name leaned correctly. The M in Monroe was wrong. The date was written in my mother's tight little style, not mine. The attached driver's license scan came from my emergency folder, not the hospital's usual ID capture system. The donor interest form said I was emotionally ready and supported by immediate family. I laughed once, hard and humorless. Supported by immediate family. They had not supported me. They had surrounded me. Then I checked the portal access log. Patricia Monroe's home IP address had accessed Jason's patient portal at 2:11 p.m. the day before the dinner. My own donor profile had been created at 2:26. The scanned license uploaded at 2:31. The signature page uploaded at 2:34. At 2:40, Melissa texted my mother in the family group chat by accident. then deleted it before I opened the thread. But backups exist when you know where to look. My phone had archived the notification. Just let Mom announce it first so Rachel can't back out in front of everyone. That message was not a misunderstanding. It was a plan with punctuation. The next pressure came dressed like reconciliation. Melissa called and asked me to come to the church office that afternoon. She said Pastor Reed wanted to help the family speak calmly. She said Jason was crying. She said Lily kept asking whether Aunt Rachel still loved them. That was the cruelest part. They had put a child between my boundary and their consequences. I told her I would come for 15 minutes, in a public room, with my phone recording. She said that sounded hostile. I said, then do not lie. The church office smelled like old carpet and lemon cleaner. Pastor Reed sat behind a small conference table with a Bible, a legal pad, and the expression of a man realizing spiritual authority did not come with medical training. My mother sat beside Jason, holding the blue folder. Melissa stood near the window. My father leaned against a file cabinet. A notary I did not know sat at the end of the table with a stamp and a pen. That was my second warning. My mother said, "We only need to clean up the last page." Melissa added, "Everyone is here, so nobody can say it was pressured." I looked at the notary stamp. The date seal had already been set to yesterday. Before I even sat down, they had prepared proof for a moment that had not happened yet. I took out my phone and photographed the stamp. The notary reached for it. I stepped back. Why is the stamp dated before this meeting? The notary looked at my mother. Pastor Reed looked at the stamp. My father said, "Rachel, do not make this ugly." I said, "It is already notarized in yesterday's costume." My mother's face hardened. "Your brother does not have time for your technicalities." There it was. My consent was a technicality. My body was a calendar problem. Jason looked at me and said, "I thought you would want to help." I looked at him until he looked away. "You wanted my kidney. You did not want my answer." Pastor Reed cleared his throat and asked my mother whether I had already signed anything. She said I had verbally agreed in spirit. I opened my phone and read Melissa's deleted text aloud. "Just let Mom announce it first so Rachel can't back out in front of everyone." The notary closed her stamp. The pastor stopped writing. My father rubbed his forehead. Melissa whispered, "That was taken out of context." I said, "Then give me the context." No one did. Silence is context when liars run out of decoration. I asked for the blue folder again. My mother refused. So I told Pastor Reed that any church fundraiser connected to Jason's treatment needed to pause until the hospital ethics review determined whether the family had submitted forged donor materials and publicly misrepresented my consent. My mother stood so quickly her chair hit the wall. "You would take money from your sick brother?" "No," I said. "I am stopping you from raising money on a lie." Jason finally snapped. "You love rules more than people." I looked at the folder under my mother's hand. Rules are what protect people from rooms like this. I left before anyone could bring Lily into the hallway. 2 days later, the hospital scheduled an ethics conference. Denise Hall would attend, along with the transplant social worker, the donor advocate, a hospital compliance officer, Pastor Reed because he had witnessed the notary attempt, and my family because Patricia insisted she had done nothing wrong. The meeting was set for 9 a.m. in a glass-walled conference room on the 5th floor, the kind of room where nobody can pretend voices did not carry. I arrived with my own folder, not blue, plain gray. My mentor, Dr. Elaine Foster, came with me as a professional support person, not to speak for me. When she hugged me in the parking garage, she said, "Remember, consent is not a family vote." I almost cried then, not because I was weak, but because someone had named the truth before asking me to defend it. My mother arrived wearing a navy dress and a cross necklace big enough to have its own argument. My father looked like he had aged 10 years in 48 hours. Jason walked slowly, pale and angry. Melissa held Lily's hand even though children were not supposed to be in the meeting. When Denise gently said Lily should wait outside with a volunteer, Melissa said, "She deserves to hear why her aunt is doing this." That sentence moved something cold through me. I crouched to Lily's height before anyone could stop me. "This is not your fault," I said, "and nobody should have told you my body was already promised." Lily's eyes filled. "Grandma said you said yes." My mother closed her eyes. The child had become the witness they did not intend. The meeting began with Patricia's version. She said I had discussed donation privately for weeks. She said I was nervous but willing. She said she only announced it to surround me with prayer and support. She said the signature must have been an administrative mistake because she had helped gather documents at my request. She said I was embarrassed by attention and had turned fear into accusation. It was polished, tearful, and almost believable if you had never met a woman who could forge compassion as easily as a signature. Denise listened without interrupting. The compliance officer took notes. Dr. Foster sat beside me with her hands folded. I waited. By the time the hospital meeting arrived, I had built a clean sequence because sequence is what liars hate. I printed the badge report from my office. I printed the portal login history. I printed the metadata from the driver's license scan. I printed the hospital email showing that no independent donor advocate had spoken to me before the packet advanced. I printed Melissa's deleted text, my mother's voicemail saying I would come around once the church understood, and a screenshot of the retirement dinner live stream where Patricia held the blue folder while the crowd applauded. I did not bring every wound. I brought the ones that proved the root. Dr. Foster looked at the stack and tapped the top page once. "Do not over-explain," she said. "Let the timestamps breathe." Proof works better after the lie finishes performing. When Patricia stopped, Denise turned to me. I placed the portal log on the table first. My donor profile was created from my mother's home network at 2:26 p.m. The license scan was uploaded 5 minutes later. I was at work. I slid over my badge report showing my access into the records department at 2:02 and out at 5:18. Patricia said, "I was helping because you were busy." I placed the signature page beside 3 valid signatures from my driver's license renewal, my employment forms, and a notarized lease. The M is wrong. The date is hers. The compliance officer leaned closer. My father stopped breathing for a second. Then I placed Melissa's text on the table. "Just let Mom announce it first so Rachel can't back out in front of everyone." Denise read it once, then again. Pastor Reed looked at Melissa. "Did you send this?" Melissa said, "It was emotional." "Did you send it?" he asked. She looked at Jason. Jason looked at the wall. Melissa whispered, "Yes." That whisper changed the room more than shouting would have. Patricia reached for the paper, but the compliance officer moved it out of her reach. Small motions can become verdicts. My mother tried one last time. A mother will do anything to save her son. I looked at her cross necklace, then at the blue folder sitting between us. You did not ask a daughter, you used one. The room went still. Jason said, "I am dying." His voice cracked, and for 1 second the whole room softened because illness is real, even when manipulation surrounds it. I looked at him and said, "I know you are sick. That does not make my consent disposable." Denise nodded once. Dr. Foster's eyes stayed on the folder. The donor advocate spoke next. and her voice was calm enough to be devastating. She stated that all donor activity would remain frozen, that no valid independent consent interview had occurred, that the submitted packet was disputed, and that the hospital would not proceed with any family-directed evaluation under coercive circumstances. The compliance officer added that portal misuse and identity document submission would be reviewed. Pastor Reed said the church fundraiser would be paused until all public materials were corrected and no donor money would be released to the family under a false claim that a living donor had been secured. My mother made a sound like someone had slapped her, but nobody had touched her. The record had. Denise then asked one question that stripped the last softness from the room. "Patricia, who uploaded Rachel's driver's license?" My mother's mouth moved without sound. My father looked at her for the first time like he was not seeing a wife, but a risk. Melissa's hand tightened around Lily's shoulder until Lily pulled away. Patricia said, "It was in a family emergency file." Denise said, "That was not the question." The compliance officer wrote something down. Jason whispered, "Mom." Not thank you, not sorry, just Mom. The sound of a protected man realizing protection had created evidence. Patricia finally said, "I uploaded what I had because time mattered." There it was. Not denial. Permission she had granted herself. The folder did not shake in front of her. Her hand did. Lily started crying quietly by the door. Not loud, not theatrical. Just a child realizing adults had built hope out of a lie and handed it to her like a promise. I stood and walked to her. Melissa stiffened, but she did not stop me. Lily whispered, "Are you still my aunt?" That broke me in a place none of the adults could reach. I said, "Always." But adults are not allowed to lie about someone's body, even when they are scared. She nodded without fully understanding. Children should not have to understand forged consent before middle school. The fallout did not come like lightning. It came like hospital policy, church bylaws, and people quietly changing their seats. Patricia was removed from the church social committee pending review. Officially, she stepped back to focus on family medical needs. Unofficially, every woman in that fellowship hall had heard Denise's call on speaker. My father's retirement slideshow stopped circulating online after someone clipped the announcement and the call. Pastor Reed issued a correction from the pulpit without naming every detail, but enough. The church fundraiser was revised to remove all language about a confirmed family donor. Donations already given were held in a restricted medical assistance account, paid directly to verified expenses instead of to my mother. That part made her furious. Control often hates receipts more than refusal. Jason's transplant path did not end. It became proper. He stayed in evaluation through approved channels. He had to meet with the social worker without my mother in the room. Melissa had to stop using Lily as a messenger. My father sent one text that said, "I should have stopped the announcement." I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied, "You should have stopped the folder." He did not answer. That was fine. Some truths do not require a conversation after they land. My mother wrote me one letter, 6 pages long, about fear. She said fear makes people desperate. She said mothers make mistakes when their children are suffering. She said I had embarrassed her in front of the church when I could have shown grace. She never wrote, "I forged your name." She never wrote, "I stole your license scan." She never wrote, "I treated your body like a family resource." So I scanned the letter, saved it, and did not respond. An apology without the noun is just damage asking for better lighting. I went back to work the next week and found a blue consent folder on my desk. For 1 second, my chest tightened before I realized Dr. Foster had left it there. Inside was a sticky note. Make it useful. So I did. I created a community workshop through the hospital outreach office called Your Consent, Your Records. We teach patients how to reset portal passwords, remove outdated proxy access, review emergency folders, protect driver's license copies, read authorization forms, and recognize when family pressure has crossed into coercion. The first session had 9 people. The second had 27. One woman stayed afterward and said her sister kept asking for her medical login just in case. Another man realized his adult son was still listed as a proxy from a surgery 3 years earlier. We did not create drama, we created locks. The first workshop was held in a community room with plastic chairs and a broken wall clock, nothing like the fellowship hall where my mother tried to donate me. I liked that. Nobody clapped before anyone consented. We practiced changing passwords on paper. We talked about who should and should not be an emergency contact. We talked about how love can exist beside the word no. A woman in a green sweater raised her hand and asked, "What if saying no makes me look cruel?" I held up the blue card from the kit and said, "Then let the record show you were clear." She put the card in her purse like it was medicine. I understood that too. I used my own money to make secure medical document kits for patients facing family pressure. Each one has a checklist, a folder, a flash drive, a portal reset guide, a consent rights sheet, and a bright blue card that says, "No one can volunteer your body for you." I chose blue on purpose. The folder my mother used as a trap became a tool. That felt right. Objects can change jobs when they finally belong to the person who understands them. I still see Jason sometimes, but not alone with our mother. He is on a longer medical road than any of us wanted, and I can feel compassion without offering my organs as proof. That distinction took me years to earn. Lily texts me about school, books, and her soccer games. I answer every message that belongs to childhood and ignore every adult attempt to pass through her phone. Melissa apologized once in a parking lot after a game. She said she was scared. I said, "I know." She said Patricia made it sound like I had already agreed. I said, "You helped make sure I could not refuse." She cried. I did not comfort her. Regret is not a child. I do not have to pick it up. My father is quieter now. He no longer says, "Not here." He knows there is no safe place left for that sentence. My mother has not changed, not in the way people hope for at the end of stories. She tells some relatives I chose paperwork over blood. She tells others the hospital misunderstood. But fewer people believe her now, and that matters. A lie gets smaller when witnesses remember the room. As for me, I keep a copy of the disputed consent page in my teaching file, with my personal details blacked out. I do not show it for sympathy. I show it because people understand danger faster when it has a signature line. Every time I hold it up, I remember that fellowship hall, the applause, the blue folder, Lily's face, my father mouthing, "Not here," and my mother explaining my body to a room before asking me. Then I say the line I wish someone had said before I was ever forced to defend it. A body is not family property, not for illness, not for grandchildren, not for church applause, not for guilt wearing a cross, not even for someone you love. So tell me, if your family announced your sacrifice before you consented, would you stay quiet to protect their image, or would you make the room hear the truth? And if they called you selfish for refusing to let them use your body, would you still call that love, or would you finally call it what it was?